Help support the companies that support our community. I started out with a block of myrtle wood. It's 4x4 and about 3.5 inches thick. And I went ahead and put it in between centers and trued it up with a spindle gouge. After I got it trued up, I went ahead and put a tenon down on one end. So this is going to be the base, and I used the square rougher to make the tenon on it. And then we'll get it put in the chuck and start sizing it. Before I size it for the rings, I need to just true it up and just clean it up a little bit. Most of this is going to be turned away here in a second, but I need to size it for the rings. So I'm using the 3.5 inch threaded bronze rings for this. And the calipers there just touch the one side so that you can get the size down. And then I used a parting tool to clean out some of that material in there so the rings can get inside of it. I'll end up cleaning out the middle of it there here in a second, but just wanted to get it to fit nice and tight, and then we'll get rid of that stuff in the middle. So I did a back cut a little bit on the side so that when you screw this thing together, it meets the wood before the threads run out. So even when you're doing an urn or a lidded box, always back cut that just a little bit. So once I got it flattened out in there, went ahead and started shaping the outside of it a little bit and just bringing it around. I kind of need to know where the bottom is because I'm going to drill a hole in it here in just a second with a Forstner bit to put a little bit of weight in there. So I just have a fishing weight. It's 4 ounces. I used a Forstner bit, drilled down in, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, and I'll put a plug in it here in just a second. And just put a little bit of wood type Bond 2 on there, spread it around a little bit, and the little plug here, I just turned that off camera. It's just, I turned it down to the diameter of the Forstner bit, put that in there, and then we'll take the tailstock and bring that up without a live center on it and just press that in there so it's got a nice tight fit, and then we'll clean it up with the #1 hollower. Now that we have all that done, I'll bring down the rest of it. So I'm just bringing this around, shaping it like a bowl, like half a sphere, and trying to make that as nice and smooth as possible. So it's kind of like one of the wobbles I did. You want it to be able to stand back up on its own when you're all done here. So I'm trying to make that a nice smooth arc all the way around. And I brought down a little tenon here with the parting tool, but you can see when I get close, when it comes down here, it starts to wobbles because that weight inside of it is off center just a little bit, and I put the tool over the top of it in case it did break off. After I got it done, I put it back in the chuck. I just expanded them and cleaned up the top of it there with the #1 hollower, and then went ahead and ran through all the grits and sanded it. So on the bottom here, I did make a little bit of a flat spot so that when it stands back up, it'll actually stand straight up. So it's just a little one. So I wanted to, didn't want to make it too flat to where it would just pop right back up. But I wanted it to eventually stand back up. So I made a little flat spot there, and then ran through all the grits up to 600 with this. I did this all dry because I have to epoxy the rings in, so I didn't want to get some oil down in there before we got all that done. And I'll oil the whole project when I get done with it. I'm going to take the chuck off and put the spur center back on. So this is another piece. It's identical to the first one. I just kind of skipped through this part. I did the same process here. I put it in between centers, trued it up, and put a tenon down on it. Now I have it back in the chuck. We're going to go ahead and clean up the face of it again because we're going to recess the other half of the threaded rings into it. And again, using the calipers, and you just touch that one side that's coming down onto the tool rest. The other one is just to gauge to make sure you have it all lined up. And same process, parting tool, just making sure that it's a nice tight fit, and back cutting just a little bit on the edge there. So, and the reason I screw the rings together like that and keep them like that is just, it's easier to grab a hold of it if you got something to grab onto and get them out, depending on how tight you make it. So this is going to be the top of it. So I am going to hollow this part out so that there's a lot more weight on the bottom than there is on the top. So I just clean out a little bit of it here, and then we'll go to the outside and start shaping it, and then I'll come back after I get the outside shaped and clean out the rest of it. So for the outside, I just did a couple big beads on it. We have a wobble food dispenser, and it's a Kong, and it's basically the same shape. So I was just kind of matching that, trying to just give it a little bit of character. And the lathe speed's probably 2,500 RPMs. I'm using a Spindle Gouge to make these beads all the way up, and just trying to make them even. Just the next one a little bit smaller than the one before. And I just did 3, and I will round over that top one here in just a second. After I got that done, I went ahead and went back to hollowing it out. So I want to make this as thin as possible, but still a little bit durable. So I just took my time and tried to make the wall thickness as thin as I could. And then I put a hole in the side of it, so the food will come out here. And so this is just above that little lip that's going to hold the bronze threaded ring. So this is the part you actually fill up with the food, and then you screw it together, and then they knock it around, the food comes out the hole. So I went ahead and sanded this all the way up to 600, and then flipped it around, and I'm going to take off the top of it there, and then clean up the very top of it. After I got that all done, I went ahead and ran through all the grits and sanded it right back up to 600. So to install the threaded rings, you just use epoxy. I just used a 5-minute epoxy. This is what I use all the time, even on the stainless inserts for like bottle stoppers and things like that. This is the stuff I use. Mix it up well. I use a little popsicle stick, spread it on there, and it bonds really well. So the threaded rings are back cut on the outside of it too, so they have like little barb on them. So once you press them in there, they're not coming out. And just cleaned off the excess, and then put on the one for the lid. And same thing here. Just the only difference on putting the female side on is I put because there's not really much to hang on to, I put the epoxy on the wood and then press it right in. And then for the finish, I used the Doctor's Walnut Oil. So this stuff is food safe, and even if you have a walnut allergy, all the proteins are boiled out of this stuff. So it is completely food safe, and I just soaked it down, and we'll just let it sit overnight and it'll be good to go. There we go, it's all done. So we fed Harper out of it this evening. She ate everything. So I am going to drill a couple more holes in the bottom of it. It stands up fine on its own, like a weeble wobble, but when you put the food in it, it doesn't. And Robin said, she goes, I don't think there's enough weight in the bottom of it. And she was right. So I'm going to drill a couple more holes in the bottom here and put some more weights in it to get it to pop back up when it's full of her food. But it's a fun little project. So we have like puzzle bowls and like a red Kong one of these, and we feed her in it, because if we just put it in a bowl, it just scarfs it all down in like 15 seconds. So we need to slow her down. So thought it'd be a fun project to play around with. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and we'll see you next time.